Previously on Season 1 of the Bag Chatter Golf Podcast. In terms of a tagline for this podcast, I think the early frontrunner is just two dudes with no drip vibing.
Yep. There are now over 400 comments on that video, and the vast majority of them are hate comments. But the one guy said, just two dudes, no drip vibing.
A man who claims he hasn't four-putted since the Clinton administration. Adam, how are you?
I can't remember four-putting ever.
Adam's April 27th round, hole 1, drive to the right, 107, green in regulation, 20 feet, and then 5 putts in my notes.
5 putts. I think he said it's too much bone meat. You got a putt for 35, you got aggressive, and you declared too much bone meat.
We went over and worked with Vokey wedges. No lying, no exaggeration, 5 hosel shanks in a row.
No way. I've never seen you shank a ball.
On the way to the course, I was telling myself, I'm going to care this round. It's not just a fun time hanging out with my son-in-law. I want it to be that too, but I'm going to actually try, and I want to play well, and if I don't play well, I'm going to be annoyed. Adam's like, you're describing a normal person.
I've lived this way since I was 6. I don't understand. I leave golf courses annoyed 70 times a year.
I really try not to do that. Yeah, everybody played well. We made those ham, we made that ham, and we made those eggs.
We made those ham. Trust us, this is going to be a worthy t-shirt design. We made those ham. I feel like I've wasted my entire life by caring about golf, by trying at golf. I can't do anything well.
Stroke the putt on my line and watch it go right in the heart. Oh, center cut, birdie on 18 to shoot 70.
To shoot 70? I'm going to slow clap. Can I slow clap? It's crazy. We won the member guest. Grant and I did. This trophy peeking out, there's a trophy right there.
The number one of the 3 focuses for 2024 would be you and I focusing more on team events.
I want us to win an event next year. Too much bone meat.
Welcome to Season 2 of the Bag Chatter Podcast. I am your host, Bryan, joined, as always, by my co-host, a man excited for dinner who is looking a little thinner and seems absolutely ready to be a winner. Adam, how are you today?
Is this what Season 2 is going to be like? Are you going to be like, are you going to bring that energy into every episode? I don't know how I feel about that.
I wanted to reference the fact that you've lost some weight. You're rocking a Jeff cap. I was going to say you look more attractive, but then you went and shaved your beard last week, and you kind of threw all that off. But listen, I worked in the fact that you're thinner and the fact that you want to be a winner, because that is what Season 2 is all about. I thought it was clever, but clearly that was a double bogey.
You're at like a 12 right now. We need to bring it down to an 8. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, let me try that again.
You're excited about Season 2. And I just think you need to play it cool, like act like you've been there before.
Do you want me to read it again, or do you think this public reprimand that you've done has kind of solved the issue?
That's up to you. If you want to give it another go, I'm totally fine with that.
Okay. Let me try it one more time. Welcome to I'm already a little too excited. Here we go.
Still too enthusiastic.
Welcome to Season 2 of the Bag Chatter Podcast. I'm your host, Bryan, joined as always by my grumpy co-host, Adam. How are you today?
That sounded like NPR or something. It's got some. There's room in between these two options, Brad. I don't know. You're a man of extremes. I don't know what else to say.
It's like we haven't been on the mics together in 4 months, Adam, and that's not the case.
It's not. We've literally recorded some episodes for the deli in recent days. So we should be fresh. We should be quippy. We've been creating great content over there. It should transfer over here, but your energy shifted.
Yeah, patreon.com/bagchattergolf. New episodes every Friday. If you haven't checked out the deli yet, you definitely should. We don't really talk about golf over at the deli, though. So that's why I'm so excited for Bag Chatter to be back. because I miss talking golf with you. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I'm so happy. Spring is here. Bag Chatter Season 2 is here.
All right, so before we get into kind of the meat of today's episode, I did actually want to ask you about something that maybe in Season 1, we might have dedicated a whole episode to this, but Season 2 is sort of taking a different direction. And so I just want to make sure this doesn't get lost in the shuffle. We did talk about this over at the deli, but a few weeks ago, in just a winter round of golf, you shot a personal best 67 at Honeybrook.
I did.
You know, you gave me a slow clap last season when I shot 70 for the first time. Let me just give you a slow clap for that. Well done. What can you tell us about that round?
I bogeyed the first hole, and then I played the next 17 at 4 under. It's really quite simple. You just make more birdies than you make bogeys. It's really not that hard, Brian. I don't know what else there is to say about it, you know?
Was every shot just kind of stock? Was it super boring, or did you maybe hit like 5 putts that you had no business hitting?
Oh, that happened. Yeah. No, I made like 200 feet of putts. We're not exaggerating. And that's all it takes for me to shoot 67 is just make every putt, no matter where you are on the course. I think that I'm worried that it's going to be my lowest round of the year, but it's not going to be, Brian. So 67 is not going to be my low of the year. There's a 66 in my body, and it comes out this year. That was just the appetizer. I hope. I'm trying to talk myself into this. I'm trying to speak a 66 into existence so that a random winter round at Honeybrook in the first round of the year isn't my low round of the year.
And take us to that 14th green, that first hole on Amish Corner. You were playing the 14th hole. Were you at 2 under at that point?
I think I was only at 1 under, actually.
1 under at that point, and you had a 3.5 footer for birdie.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
I missed it, Brian. I didn't even hit the hole. So despite making 200 feet of putts, I missed a 3.5 footer. So I was a 3.5 footer away from a 66. Last year, I was 1 up and down away from a 66. And so I'm flirting. You know, we're in conversations. My people are talking with their people. And this year it comes out.
You know, it was maybe my favorite part of you shooting 67 by literally making about 200 feet worth of putts is that just a few days earlier, we had gone for a putter fitting for you, just kind of as a fun exercise to see if you were maybe rolling the right putter or not. And you kind of came out of that thinking, maybe I will switch putters.
Yeah, not for a while now. I'll have to putt poorly for a while before I make any switches. Yeah, so I mean, the putter fitting was interesting. I liked it, but then I made every putt I looked at and have continued to putt pretty well in my initial rounds for the year. And I'm not making a move. I'm not giving your putter back yet, Brian. Someday you can have your putter back. Today is not that day. This day we fight.
That's fine. You offered me collateral for it. Your one kidney is still in my fridge, and I will hold on to it until you give me the putter back and want your kidney back. So
I'll just pop it right back in. It's fine.
What brand of putter is that you made so many feet of putts with?
That's a Titleist Scotty Cameron Phantom 5.5.
That's a great segue to our next segment. All right, Adam, before we get into today's episode, who is the sponsor?
Well, Brian, I wish I could say it was sponsored by Titleist, but sadly, it's not.
That is a bummer, because if it were, we would say that Titleist is not only the #1 ball in golf, but also the game's leading performance equipment brand.
Yeah, we'd probably talk about the new SM10 wedges being the best in the game and the TSR series being the best looking, best performing drivers and woods on the market.
Right, we'd probably do a whole thing about how my entire bag has transitioned to Titleist over the last 2 seasons, and how you've been loyal to Titleist for basically your whole golfing life.
That's a true story.
But yeah, we can't talk about any of that stuff since they are not an official sponsor, despite them being the best people in the industry who also make the best products.
What's crazy about that is how they're all really good looking, smart, and funny too. Like, how is that fair?
That's not fair, Adam.
By the way, you are going to go back and delete all that, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Titleist, not an official sponsor of the Bag Chatter podcast. Yet.
So Adam and I launched the Bag Chatter podcast in 2023, and season 1 was everything we hoped it would be. We thought it would be a blast to create golf content, put it out there in the world, and see if it resonated with anyone. And we were right. It was. Looking back at season 1, there were a few threads that ran throughout the entirety of that season, and one of them was competition. Adam played in a US Open qualifier in the spring and clearly wanted more of it. Here he is in June talking about that qualifier.
So I've talked about playing in a Philadelphia Open qualifier here, and that you don't need to shoot 2 under par to get into that thing. You need to shoot 77, 78. And before this, I would have said, can I go do that when it matters under pressure? And after this event, I feel like, yeah, I can absolutely go to any course in the area under any conditions, and I can go shoot 77 or better. It felt like, despite, again, I'm going to say it again, 83 is not anything anyone's noticing. Yeah, I did feel like just hitting the ball well in that context and getting around an extremely difficult course made me say, there's not a lot of things I'll be afraid to do in the future. And that's an exciting thought.
And here he is again, about 4 months later, as we wrapped up the season.
It's one of the only things I think about in golf is just how can I test this? How can I test myself? How can I get better at this? How can I improve my performance when it matters? I've gotten to a point where I feel like I'm playing a lot of good golf. I mean, not never elite golf, but very good golf at times when it doesn't matter. And I want that to translate more to when it matters.
Of course, if you listen to season 1 of the show, you know that I don't feel quite that same way. For half of season 1, I wasn't even sure that I was competitive when it came to golf. And even though I got to a place where I was able to admit that I was, it still wasn't something that I felt I needed as a consistent part of my golfing life. Despite how much I love the game, despite how much I love putting in work to improve, I just don't think very often about achieving success in official golf tournaments. I never have, honestly. So when Adam says, it's one of the only things I think about in golf, I want it to translate more to when it matters, what exactly is he talking about? Well, he's talking about official tournaments, like those run by the USGA and smaller regional associations like the Golf Association of Philadelphia, the Pennsylvania PGA, the Lanco Golf Association, the Philly Publinks, and so on. Turns out, since Adam was in grade school, he's seen these types of tournaments as a way for people who love golf to test how good they are. These are the things that have always mattered to him, like since he was 9. Here we are last month during a rare February round at our home course, Honeybrook Golf Club, exploring just how differently we feel about this. Also, quick audio side note, normally I would apologize for the imperfect audio here, but since the background noise you hear is mostly the bag chatter from our clubs, it's kind of on brand.
Like, so if you're talking about building a golf resume, which again, it sounds like you don't even care about.
I don't. Who wants to build a golf? Nobody cares about your golf resume.
I do.
Okay, well, that's the thing.
Since I was 9 years old, I've cared about my golf resume.
We're getting to it now. You're trying to build a golf resume.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
I think a lot of people, again, you want to say, so especially when you start when you're 9 years old.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, and I know that my children and my grandchildren will know me as a golfer, okay?
Yep.
I love my grandfather. He passed away a couple years ago very much. He was a golfer. I viewed him as a golfer. He never shot better than 78 in his life. And that's fine.
And you don't love him.
That's what I'm saying. And so it's like, to me, I want to build upon that. He kind of got me into golf, right? And
yeah.
I'm like, that, you know, I knew my grandfather's lowest score ever, and it was 78. And right now, my grandchildren will know that it was 67. And I like that. I like that difference.
Yeah.
And I would love for it to be like, yeah, I knew a guy at our church when I was like 10 who played in, kept qualifying for all the New Hampshire state tournaments. And I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
He was playing competitive golf. He wasn't a pro.
Yeah.
He was playing competitive golf, and it felt otherworldly. I thought he was just like a superhero.
So listen, Gary Palanza, if you're out there, Adam Shorey thought you were a superhero. Probably still does. I, on the other hand, didn't have a Gary Palanza to look up to. My dad played golf with his buddies once or twice a week, but that seemed to be good enough for him. Outside of an occasional member guest, it was mostly all rounds with friends. My dad was a pretty good golfer, still is actually, and even though he was probably a single-digit handicap in his heyday, He just never talked about official golf tournaments, so they were never on my radar. I played the game off and on in my 20s and 30s when my kids were younger, never got super serious about it, at least not until I really got the golf bug around age 40. Adam, on the other hand, admits that the game of golf has been tied to his identity for as long as he can remember. And he'll be the first to tell you that he feels he still has unfinished business. Namely, that he wants to do something that he considers grand in the game of golf.
So I understand that this is something that could literally use a therapist, potentially. But I'm still of the delusion that I could do something grand in golf. That's really what it is.
Okay, yeah.
I'm like, do I think I'm going to become a PGA Tour player? No, of course not. Do I think I'm going to...
You're not even one of those, well, if I practice enough, I might make the senior tour at 50 guys.
Not at all.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm 35 years old. I'm playing the best golf of my life. I think I have room to grow.
Yep.
And I'm like, I want to see how far I can take that. And I'm like, I want these local competitions and success in those local competitions to be the steps to that. Where it's like, and then I'm playing in a US Mid-Am qualifier. And I'm like, is it likely that I'm going to qualify for the US Mid-Am? No. Could I shoot 70 and qualify for the US Mid-Am? Yes. And that would feel like a huge accomplishment. And the way to get to that would feel grand to me.
Yeah.
And the way to get to that is by playing enough real competition that wouldn't be a complete outlier. I want to have played enough rounds by the time I'm playing those things that matter, that it's like, this isn't crazy. This is something you can do. You've done it before this year.
Did you hear how Adam referenced the tournaments we'll be playing in this year? He called them those things that matter. It keeps coming up again and again. The tournaments that matter. The tournaments that are important. Despite the fact that these are terms that I've never used to describe how I feel about golf tournaments, here's Adam insisting to me that I could rank all of our upcoming tournaments in order of importance to me if I was being honest.
You could rank those almost exactly, couldn't you?
Of ranking by what?
Importance.
I don't even like that word.
To you, okay, what word do you prefer? Because it's a true word. It's not, you don't have to like it. In terms of
what I'm more excited to play in. I could rank it that way.
So if you're more excited by more important things, but like they are more prestigious. Yes, they are. All the tournaments you're going to play in could be directly ranked in terms of prestige.
Okay, sure.
But in terms of, I mean, listen. So we're gonna play Honeybrook events, right? They are confined to people who are members at Honeybrook, so that's a very small pool, right? So then we're going to play Philly Pub Links. That's a smaller group of people. Then we're going to play Philadelphia. That's a tri-state region thing, and then we're going to play Pennsylvania, which is state championship. Yeah. Huge pools. So in terms of importance, prestige, impressiveness to win, the bigger the pool.
You keep saying important like it's an objective word, and to me it's a subjective word.
Okay.
I don't know what else to tell you. Like, I'm telling you a round with my dad might be more important than...
Okay, sure. I'm saying golf-wise.
Golf-wise. But what if I just think in tiers and bands, and all of these tournaments are kind of in the same tier for me? They're just...
Then that's an overly simplistic way of thinking about tournaments. Because they are all varying degrees of important based on how big the pool of people who can and would play in them is. It's the same reason it's more important to win the US Open than the Pennsylvania Open, because that takes the pool from 300 million people instead of,
This gets back to expectations. I'm not expecting to win either of them.
Right,
so...
but whatever you do...
Yeah.
Getting into the Pennsylvania Open is more impressive than the Philadelphia Open because it's the whole state.
Yeah. I don't care about these things the way you do, and that just is what it comes down to. And it's not because I'm scared, it's just because I won't go into any of these thinking like, oh, this is my number 3, this is my number 5. They're all going to be...
But you will to some degree.
No, don't...
Yes, you will, because...
I'll spare you the rest of that part of the conversation because we just kept repeating ourselves. But here's one last clip from that day. This is from the 9th tee box, our last hole of the day, as the conversation really started to go off the rails.
I already know what your pushback to this is going to be, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's almost like trying to get my wife to admit, acknowledge, and care about the difference in the value of different baseball cards. Like,
Right.
oh, these are auto. Oh, no, this isn't like numbered.
What's my pushback going to be?
Like, she'd just be like, I just don't care.
Right, but what's my pushback going to be?
Your pushback is going to be, well, that's because she doesn't care about baseball cards one iota, and this is golf we're talking about, Brian,
No,
and you do care about golf.
My pushback is going to be, she's wrong. So I understand. Listen, you can find it silly that a piece of cardboard is worth anything more than the value of cardboard.
Right.
But if you bought a pack of cards and pulled a $3,000 card, she might not care about the player or that it's numbered 1 of 10 or that it's autographed or any of that. She's going to care that it's worth $3,000. And it is worth $3,000.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether she cares about it or not, it is.
But if I'm like, this card here is a base card, it's literally worth nothing, I'm going to throw it out.
Right.
This card here is numbered to 199. He's kind of a scrub, but, I could probably sell this for $8.
Right?
She's not going to care. And if I'm like, well, this one here, this is a purple prism ice, I could probably get like $40 for it. Not going to care.
She's like, throw it away.
She's just not going to care.
She doesn't need to care.
But that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make me care about the different levels of these tournaments that I...
But okay. So yes, I guess then part of the pushback is we are talking about golf, something you care about.
Yeah.
So you're taking one area of golf, which you've shown over the years an ability to be endlessly interested in for the last decade.
Yeah.
And you're saying, yes, these initial levels of competition that you can get into as an amateur golfer, don't care about them. And I go, of course you do. What are you talking about?
So what exactly are these competitions that Adam is so insistent that I care about? We jumped on the mics about a week later to talk through our tournament schedule for the year. All right, Adam, let's talk tourneys. Let's talk schedule. Let's talk official events.
I mean, if I can even bother you to go over it. I guess we could go over it if you can be bothered.
I mean, it's not that I don't want to do this. It's just that what we did was we just reached into the closet. We pulled out a big plastic tote. There's just a bunch of tournaments in there. They're all in that same tote. We're just gonna pull some out and examine them.
Right. The PGA Tour players feel the same way. They've got the Valspar Championship, and then they've got the Cognizant Classic, and then there's the Masters, and then but no, it would be subjective. It would be subjective for any of them to care about the majors more. That's silly.
All right, I'm going to play along. I'm going to let you talk me through. We've got a graphic that we're working off of. It's sort of a pyramid. It's not sort of a pyramid. It actually is a pyramid. It's got 4 levels, 4 tiers, if you will. I am going to put this graphic at some point up on the website, backchattergolf.com, under the Season 2 tab, so people can check that out as well. This is a living document. I have stuff up there in different tiers, but we're going to work through it together. I want to start with the 2-man tournaments first, or at least the top tier of the 2-man tournaments, because something happened over these last couple months that was a little bit unfortunate and kind of caused us to have to pivot a little bit for this season. And it relates to this top tier of tournament.
Yeah, that was our North Star. I mean, for the entire off season, the plan was to focus on these 2-man events and have the USGA 4-ball be the culminating event that everything built to. Why are we playing in this 2-man tournament? Why are we playing in that 2-man tournament? It's all to, weigh our chances in the USGA 4-ball at the beginning of or at the end of the year, I should say. And the USGA did us dirty. They did us a little dirty. Mm-hmm. They changed the handicap requirement to get into it from 5.4 all the way down to 3.4. No, 2.4. Sorry. 5.4 to 2.4. Now that's put you under the gun if we are going to have any chance of playing in the US 4 ball.
Before, neither of us was under the gun, and now I am the only one under the gun. I mean, I don't like that. Now, granted, you have to maintain a sub 2.4 index, which I expect you to do. I like the fact that you don't feel under the gun at all by that.
I don't. I'm going down. I'm going the other way, Brian. I'm getting to 0.0 this year, so let's just do it.
I like that. I plan on lowering my handicap this year as well. 2.4 is kind of a big ask, big enough that we can't really schedule our entire season around playing in this. But that being said, this event typically is the qualifications for this start, I believe, late summer and run well into the fall. I don't know exactly when registration closes, but I definitely have a fairly big window here to see what I can do, to see if I can put up some scores. While it did kind of derail the plan for the podcast this year, it also did set up like a miracle story that if I can somehow get to 2.4,
that's right,
and we can register for this thing, that would be amazing. So in terms
if you get to 2.4 for one day, we are overnight mailing it. We're hand delivering it. We're Paul Revering a registration to that thing. You know,
and I'm quitting golf until we actually play. I'm not posting any other scores.
Yeah, we'll do anything possible to make it a non-official round. I'll offer you mulligans, everything, so that you never have to post again. And we will get into that thing if you get down to 2.4.
So yeah, stay tuned for that. Let's flip over to the individual events. What would you put at the very top of the pyramid in tier 1 as the pinnacle individual event for you this year, Adam?
Well, it's also interesting because last year I played in a U.S. Open qualifier. They moved the U.S. Open and the U.S. AM down to 0.4 required to enter those. So as of now, I am not planning on playing in a U.S. Open qualifier again or a U.S. AM qualifier unless my handicap does go that way. I'm 1.3 going into the season. What is still there is the U.S. Mid-Am qualifier, and that is at 2.4 as well, just like the 4 ball. And so that will be certainly my pinnacle event. It's the one USGA qualifier I have on my schedule for sure. I'm hoping to maybe get 1 to 2 more in, but that's the only one that's locked in right now.
So let's go back to the 2-man events. In our second tier, just below that USJ 4-ball, which may or may not happen, we've got a couple of 4-ball tournaments. We've got the PA 4-ball, which is a 2-day event in June. I think we're still a little undecided on that one because the cost to get in is $7,600 per player, and
it feels that way. It may not be that may not be the exact number, but I'm just giving you a feel for when I look at the registration price.
Yeah, it is spendy. Gosh, what is that? $480 per team. Yeah,
it is 2 days. It is 2 days. I say as if that makes it better.
It is, folks.
Only $120 a day. Only $120 a day per man.
If y'all can jump on that Patreon, go join the deli now, and maybe there's a chance that we can play in that.
Help us in our quest to become Pennsylvania 4-ball champions.
Also in tier 2 is the Golf Association of Philly 4-ball, which is happening in August. That's at the 1912 Club, which is a really nice private club that I've heard good things about, but I've never been to. Registration, half the price for that. So
that's so nice.
Thank you, Gap, for that.
So nice of them.
Believe that is a 1-day event.
Wait a second. It's half the price, but it's also half the golf. So wait, it's the exact same price per round. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that is true. That's a good point. So you feel like that's everything else on the 2-man list probably doesn't live up to what we've got there in tier 2.
No, everything else is. So we've got, and this is going to be a theme. The Golf Association of Philadelphia is obviously our local regional golf association. It covers 3 states, covers a huge amount of people. and it is the oldest golf association in the country. It has so much history. So those events are going to be premier events. The majors for Gap are going to be huge. And then the Pennsylvania events are going to be huge because those are state championships. I mean, so I think in any other state I've lived in, the state championship would be radically larger than any city championship. But in Pennsylvania, we've got Gap that kind of covers it. And so like I would put Gap and Pennsylvania state championships kind of on the same level, at least the Gap majors anyway.
Yeah. So let's go right to those. That's what makes up that second tier of individual events. We've got the Gap Mid-Am qualifier in April. We've got the Gap Amateur qualifier in May. We've got the Gap Open qualifier in June, the PA Open qualifier in July, Patterson Cup, which is another Gap major. What did you say? That's the oldest amateur tournament in the country?
In the country. That is the oldest amateur tournament in the country.
That qualifier is also in July, and then the PA Mid-Am in August.
Yeah.
So 6 tournaments in that second tier.
That whole tier is encompassed by Gap and PA tournaments, and all of them feel like, I believe those are all qualifiers. And so getting through the qualifier into the event proper for any of those would feel huge to me. That would be a step forward in my golf career, and my golf resume would look better for it. I'll say that.
So we just listed 6 tournaments there in that second tier. Vegas has listed the over-under on how many of those 6 I'm going to play in at 2.5. You taking the over or the under?
I'm going to take the slight under because
the handicap. I guess the handicap thing is an issue.
So yeah, so the only thing is I believe your handicap's going to be below 5, but I think for all the Gap majors, I believe you have to have a 5 handicap or lower to try to qualify.
Okay.
I don't know about the Pennsylvania State Championship qualifiers, but I'm going to set it at 2 because I think you're going to get under 5, and I think you're going to play in 2.
Okay.
I think you're going to pick, as I'm maybe playing 4 to 5 of those, I think you're going to pick 2 that you like, whether it be because of course or how you're feeling at the time. And I think you're going to jump into 2 with me.
Okay. We shall see. We shall see. Let's move down to...
You set the line, so I assume that line is about right for you?
I think it's about right, yeah, because I don't know how many of those I'm going to be eligible for. And I feel like I've got to play in at least a couple of those. And if I have a really good experience once or twice, then yeah, I might jump in for more.
Now, if your handicap was, what was the lowest it was last year? Like 3.9?
Mm-hmm.
So if your handicap right now for the off season sat at 3.9, what would the over under be?
The over under would you'd probably lose the hook. It would probably go up to 3. Over under would be at 3. So It would bring the push into play.
I would bet the push, weirdly, in that situation. I don't know if you can do that, but I would bet the push. I feel like 3 would be the number.
Rounding out the rest of the individual events, we've got a few of them here in that third tier. The Frank Wood, which is a 2-day event. Is that Gap or Philly Pub?
That is Philly Pub Links. Okay,
so that's Philly Pub Links. We've got the Lanco Amateur, which is a 2-day event that we are pretty sure we can get into. We don't have official word on that yet, just with playing out of Chester County, but I'm pretty sure we'll be able to. The Philly Pub Links Mid-Am, and then the Phoenixville Open, which, I mean, people are still talking to this day about your rise up the leaderboard on day 2 that was thwarted by weather.
My T15 finish there. That was pretty big. Pretty big. It was big for me. Honestly, it felt big. But those tournaments, they are clearly a third tier. They are clearly below Gap and Pennsylvania tournaments. But I love these tournaments. I'm in a different way just as excited for these. They're not as important. They are objectively less important, but there is they feel like something where it's like, this is something where a goal for me this year would be to, top 10 in a couple of these, to have a thought of winning one of these on the second day. I love they have so like there's at least 3 that we know of that are 2-day events, and I love the 2-day event. I love the flow of that. I love going and shooting a score, good or bad, going home, sitting on it, thinking about it, and coming out the next day. It feels like that's what competitive golf is about, and I can't wait for those events, even if they are objectively slightly less important.
Speaking of 2-day events, if we go back to the 2-man tournaments in that third tier, we've got the Lanco Better Ball at Tanglewood. That's a 2-dayer in June. And the Philly Publix Donald Ross Better Ball at Jeffersonville in August. Another 2-day. Those should be a lot of fun.
Those are going to be great. I cannot wait for those. I've played in a good number of these Philly Publix tournaments, and have you ever played in any of them? No. So, I mean, they're really well run. They do a great job with them. I can't wait to get out there with you in those. Yeah.
And then tier 4 is not quite finished yet. I think the Honeybrook tournaments that we play in are probably going to get slotted into tier 4. Club championship at Honeybrook, would you call that a tier 3 maybe?
I would put the club championship and only the club championship in the next tier. So, I think everything else falls into a category where it's like, either it's like a Honeybrook tournament where it's just, it's people we know, it's very casual, but it's a little bit of a competitive rep nonetheless. And then you've got, maybe some scrambles. We've talked about playing in the Philly Publix Spring Scramble. I think that would be a tier 4 where, winning it would be very fun, but I think it falls a level below the tournaments that we've been discussing. That's how tiers work.
Yep, exactly. We got the Gap Winter Series Better Ball. We've got that Philly Publix. There's a Lanco 2-man scramble. There's a Philly Publix Fall Better Ball. That's in August 26th. I don't know if we should citizens arrest them for improper naming, playing a Fall Better Ball in August. But
that is outrageous. It's outrageous, but we'll play it anyway.
We will. And then actually there's a Fall Scramble that is October 27th at Honeybrook. Philly Publix is putting on. So that's kind of cool.
Well, I'm sure we'll be there for that one.
Little home course advantage. So there it is. I think there's like 25 tournaments total on our list, and there's a few that didn't even make our list. So there's a lot to choose from this year. For me right now, just about everything on this sheet of paper I'm looking at, which there's probably, I don't know how many tournaments are in here, 20-ish.
Yeah.
Almost all of those are in one big bucket to me of events that I will play in or might play in this year. But I am open to the fact that by the end of the year, I'm going to have created multiple buckets of, this is more important to me than this. I am open to that. I don't know if you can be open to the fact that right now I just have one big ignorant bucket.
Well, that's as long as you know it's an ignorant bucket, then it's fine.
Okay.
If it's at the end of the year and after all our conversations and after seeing all these events, you still have one bucket, then it's willful ignorance. And I can't take part in that. Do we agree that me playing in a U.S. Mid-Am is more important than me playing in a Philadelphia Mid-Am? I just want to know if we agree that it's more important.
If you believe that it's more important, then it absolutely is.
Is it objectively more important, Bryan? It is objectively more important. Unbelievable.
I reject your use of a subjective word as an objective word. Listen, you can't make me care deeply about something I don't care deeply about.
I don't ask you to care deeply, but here's the problem, Bryan. It's that it's incongruous with everything else I know about you. Okay? Your part of your public persona is defined by caring about golf and about niche golf things, right? So if someone doesn't care about golf and they say to me, I don't care about the Phoenixville Open or even the Philadelphia Open, I go, I totally understand that you don't care about anything in golf, but you caring about golf things and specifically caring about, you enjoy the podcast, as do I, Chasing Scratch, where they've put this importance on a thing
and we all just buy into the fact that it matters, right? Because it becomes meaningful. And in the same way, these tournaments have been going on for some of them hundreds of years. And people have been doing this for, the Patterson Cup is like 127 years old or something. You should, more than anyone I know, love this. This is made for you. And you can't tell me it's because you're not competitive or something, because speaking of chasing scratch, there's a tournament, you lost a match and you never listened to the episode because you were so upset about losing it. So you are competitive.
It's true. The episode entitled Poison, I have never listened to, and I never will, because my feelings got hurt when Eli came back on me and Tyler, and when Mike suddenly showed up after being sick I don't even want to talk about it. You're right. Golf has been a part of my persona for going on 9 years now, since I started Hosel Jockeys and since I really got obsessed with the game. And do you know how many conversations I've had about the Patterson Cup in those 9 years? Do you know how many people have looked at me side-eyed and thought, there's something really missing from all this golf stuff? Nobody. It doesn't happen. Nobody has told me that I'm less of a golfer or that I don't really care because I haven't decided to put the work in on these tournaments that never have been on my radar in the past. It's just not a thing. I've had plenty of conversations about my handicap. I've had plenty of conversations about different areas of my game, or how far I drive the ball, or what different courses I've played in, or what golf trips I've taken. These are the things that I've been talking about. I haven't had a bunch of conversations about, did you play in the Frank Wood Memorial?
Right. But here's the thing. Listen, I don't get that many inquiries to these things either. But when I tell people that I'm a 1, people frequently ask me, do you play tournaments? I want to be at a point where I'm even better than that. And people, if you're a +2, +3, everyone wants to know what tournaments you play in. Everyone wants to know what you're competing in when you get to a certain level.
Okay.
If someone is a plus handicap, I ask them what types of tournaments they enjoy playing in. And I want that to be, for me, I do understand that this part is subjective. That It's like, if that's not a goal of yours, that's fine. But in terms of, there are tournaments that are played in by the best golfers, and those people are the best golfers, and it's not, and there are just different levels of tournaments. And I've been thinking about this ever since last week.
Yeah. And no, I mean, it does come back to identity a lot for me, because even the term best golfer, like, I just don't really think of myself like that. Even as my handicap has crept down the way it has in the past couple of years, touching a 3.9 last season for like a week, it's still kind of like sort of surprising to me. And I do have a little bit of a problem with that, honestly, because I do believe that, like, you can kind of put a ceiling on yourself with, like, basically the image that you have of yourself. And so if I'm walking around thinking that, like, I'm a fraudulent 5, then kind of going to be hard for me to stay at a 5. So I get that part of it. I get the identity part of it. Maybe what's going to unlock the next level of being a better golfer for me is being like, hey, you actually are capable of showing up in these tournaments and putting a few good holes together and surprising yourself. It's even hard for me to say it, but that would be kind of cool if that could happen.
It's hard for me to say.
I feel a little fraudulent. There's a little bit of imposter syndrome.
That is the joy, though, of these tournaments, is that even the smallest tournament. So you get nervous for the club championship.
Yes, of course. Yep.
Like, because it matters suddenly, right? And so if we expand that, and so if you do well in the club championship, that means that if you play to your handicap or better in the club championship, that, you're not a fraudulent 5, you're a real 5. And even when it really gets down to it and it really matters to you, you can play that. And then the bigger the tournament you play, the more true that is, the more,
prestigious a tournament, the bigger pool it's pulling from, the more you're not a fraud. So yeah, I'm absolutely fighting imposter syndrome. I'm absolutely saying, okay, yeah, I'm a 1.4. I think I ended 1.3 actually at the end of last year. And it's like, you know, but people talk about Honeybrook being an easy golf course and this and that. And, you know, I've never done anything really in a tournament. And I'm like, how good am I? Really? I want it to be unquestionable, unassailable that I am a very low single digit handicap golfer, where it's like, not only, you know, if you do really poorly in a USGA qualifier, they send you a letter, right? And they don't tell you not to come back. They say, hey, can you send us any results from other tournaments where you have shown that you're capable of championship golf? And I want, if I just blow up in the US Mid-Am and I shoot 90, I want to be able to, when they send me that letter, send them 7, 8, 9, 10 tournaments from this year where I played at a championship level in competition, and have them be like, okay, you're good. Enter more USGA tournaments. That's kind of, you know, it's not a goal, but it sort of is as well.
Yeah. And I do think the other piece of this is, and kind of what you were saying, just the reps and how important the reps are. Mm-hmm. And it's taking it to a little bit of an extreme, but I know for a fact that if I played in one of these types of tournaments every week, like for the next 35 weeks, I would feel differently about them by the end of them. I mean, I might hate them. I might never want to do it again, but also they wouldn't feel as unknown and as intimidating to me as they do now. And that would probably put me in a better place with them for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know. And again, I understand that this part is subjective, but you know, I had an okay round in the first round of the Phoenixville Open last year. And again, I'm not trying to tell anyone that the Phoenixville Open is very objectively important, but it's very competitive. There are really good golfers who play in it. And so I was like T20 after round 1. And before it got cut short by rain, I made a couple bogeys to start. And then I played like 5 holes in 4 under par. And I went from T20 to like T8. And that feeling of making a charge in a real tournament, shooting into the top 10, you know, it had the little, I was watching the live scoring and it had the little thing. I had risen 12 spots or whatever it was, you know. I'm like, that feeling, that was one of the first times in my life I've been like, no, I can do this. I am a real golfer. I'm not a person who can shoot a good round with Bryan when we're alone at Honeybrook. I can go to another course and I can go low and I can make a charge. I was like 2 under through 8 holes because I had made 4 birdies in 5 holes. And it's like, yeah, I'm good. and honestly, no matter, you know, I was a couple under there, and it's like I shot 67 with you, you know, a few weeks ago in a winter round at Honeybrook. And if I had shot 62 that day, if I'd taken 5 off my best ever, it couldn't compare to even slightly charging up a leaderboard when it matters. And it's just like, it just is so much more meaningful to do anything in a tournament. And so I want to play as many as I can, and I want to do better and better in them. That's the next step.
So here's where we're at as we get into the rest of season 2 of Bag Chatter. Fresh off of being reinstated as an amateur in December, Adam is finally all in on doing the one thing he's wanted to do since he was 9. He's planning on playing up to 20 official events this year, most of them individual events, in hopes of building a golf resume that he's proud of. Ultimately, as you heard him say, he wants to do something grand in the game of golf, something that validates the 20-plus years of work he's put into the game. As for me, I am all in on 2-man competitions because I love the idea of succeeding or failing as a team. To me, team golf is the best form of the game. It makes the lows more bearable and the highs way more enjoyable. Because of that, my goal for the season is for us to become the best two-man team we can be. And I'm not shying away from competition. I want to bring home some hardware this year to prove it. As for individual golf events, much like Adam, I feel the same way about them as I have my whole life. And that's to say, for me, I still kind of feel indifferent. Despite loving the game of golf and still wanting to improve, achieving good results in official tournaments has never really been on my radar. Adam thinks it's because I don't believe in my game enough, and if I'm honest, that could be a part of it. That being said, I will be playing in many individual events this year because I want to tell good stories this season, and you can be sure that in the heat of battle, I'm certainly going to be invested in how well I play. So, how is this all going to play out? Am I going to love the competition and suddenly care about building an individual golf resume? Or am I going to crash and burn out there by myself and regret ever agreeing to do this? What about Adam? Is he going to finally be able to put something grand on his resume, something that validates all the time, effort, and energy he spent on golf since his childhood? And what happens if he doesn't do it? What happens if you finally go all in on a lifelong dream and you come up empty? Most of these questions won't be answered until later this season, but not all of them. Some of the answers have already started trickling in.
Be the number, please. Go in.
Wow.
Great shot, Bryan.
Great shot. Huge. Did you just clutch up? Is that what the kids call that?
Can we establish ourselves as a winning two-man team this season and bring home some hardware to put in the Bag Chatter trophy case? Or are we further away from hitting that goal than we even realized?
You're driving up. Bryan looks tight. I think it's 4 feet. You think so? I think it's 2.
Gosh, I hope it's 2.
If it's whatever it is, it's a tie for the lead. It's less than 4 for sure. It is 1. It's about 10 inches from the hole.
Let's go. Let's go.
To tie the lead.
Let's go.
It stuffs it.
Let's go.
Stuffs it.
You'll find out in episode 2. See you next week. Thanks so much for checking out the Bag Chatter podcast. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and you already know how to subscribe to podcasts, so I'm not going to waste your time. You can find us on all the socials at Bag Chatter Golf or Bryan Elaine Golf, and you can check out everything we have going on at bagchattergolf.com. If you want more content from me and Adam, check out the Bag Chatter Deli. That is our Patreon where we only serve the choicest portions of 4-ball ham and the leanest cuts of bone meat. For $5 a month, you get to support the pod, and you get a weekly episode of our Friday supporter-only podcast, Cold Cuts, Hot Takes. You can find that at patreon.com/bagchattergolf. You guys are the best. Thanks so much for listening.